And yes, China will go to war with the West because, unlike Russia, where Putin is making decisions, China is following blueprint led by Mao. Very, very interesting statements. Uh, do you see this happening, Carl?
Depending what you mean by
Depends.
war, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like right now, China is already upending the Western dominated world order. I did a Twitter post on this. I said, the Monroe Doctrine is over because Colombia is one country in Latin America that had traditionally the closest ally
yeah,
of the United States, right? Like all the U.S. war on drugs and all that. That's all happening in Colombia,
yeah,
the U.S. traditionally very tight with the Colombian military. Um, and basically making them go after all the leftist guerrillas and stuff. So Colombia is now at the point where they're ready. They're ready to diversify their
yeah.
relationship to have a close strategic partnership with China. This is huge. Colombia is a very populous country. I mean, right now, majority of Latin American country already doing trade with
Business
China. And
trade.
they,
Yeah.
right now you can get BYD Seagull in Costa Rica, guys. You can get like
Wow.
all these Chinese EVs in Costa Rica, but you will not be able to get it in the United States and
States,
Canada.
of
I'm
course.
sorry. Vast majority of the Latin American country, and they have more positive views with
Yeah.
China and their relationship with China than with the United States. And this is what makes a lot of people in Washington, particularly likes of Marco Rubio, very uneasy because
Oh yeah.
they always say, "Oh, we're the champion of democracy and freedom," right? And then it turns out they're not very popular in Latin America because the Latin Americans
No.
has suffered all these U.S. arrogance for so long, and now they have a clear alternative. U.S. is not the only model for development anymore,
No.
and China have showed that they provide real alternatives by providing investment, by providing infrastructure. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants investment in their infrastructure, and
Indeed.
that's something that U.S. is finding increasingly difficult to compete with, because only thing U.S. can offer is weapons and military bases,
Yeah.
and 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 this is why the Trump tariff. Going back to the Trump
Yeah.
tariff, what it has really shown, it was China that's emerging as a global leader, and China, rather than the United States, is the indispensable nation.
Yeah.
As the country that makes things rather than just a country that buy things with paper IOUs. Like people can always the conceit in United States is that, oh, they need us to buy their goods. No, like they can buy their own
Yeah.
goods. Like
Yeah.
people in the global south, they have a demand for goods too. And China made that possible. Like I pointed
Mhm.
out before, China had made smartphone affordable to the global majority, and
Yeah.
and and now they're gonna, Washington called that deflate China exporting deflation. But what actually
Deflation.
happened is China is actually enabling the global consumer culture by providing affordable goods, and that will continue.
Yeah. Well, that's why we are witnessing, for example, the Chance port in Peru, and how that's gonna now increase the transfer of goods, commodities, and so forth between Latin America and China and the rest of the world, for that matter. For those who are interested, now the one thing that the U.S. ended up doing following this agreement between Colombia and the U.S. And China, I'm sorry, is that we have forced Panama to agree to allow U.S. fighter jets in on the Panama. I was like, what the heck are we doing there with the fighter jets? It just didn't make sense
Yeah,
to me.
I mean that's just another example. Only thing U.S.
That's
can
true.
offer is
That's
military
true.
base and weapons, and this is why they're trying to reassert the
Yeah.
control of Panama Canal. And by the way, the Panama Canal deal was vetoed by the Chinese government. So in the end, the U.S. the Chinese government put their foot down and telling the owner of these
Yeah.
of the uh, Hutchinson, which owns operate those two ports, and no, you can't sell to BlackRock. Sorry,
Yeah.
we disapprove, and so the deal is off. But the reason why U.S. want to control the Panama Canal is,
Yeah.
again, they want have a veto over Chinese trade with Latin America. They're not happy with the way the direction things are going,
Yeah.
but China says no, no, no. Sorry, BlackRock, you can't have those ports. We vetoed it. So this might be another military hardware into Panama right now
Yeah.
to apply further pressure. We're gonna have to see how that works out. It's but again, I don't think that will work out in the long term.
Yeah.
In the long term, people still want development. That's what everybody wants.
That is true. That is true. Malaysia is going to replace India in BRICS. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I never
There's
believed
already Indonesia. There's
Indonesia
already
there.
Indonesia for the eye.
Yeah.
The eye for
I
Indonesia.
on a serious note, Carl, I never believed that India is a good fit for BRICS. I could be wrong, but that's how I've always
Well,
felt.
I think the inclusion of India is you rather have India on your side
Yeah.
than working with Washington, right? Even though
Yeah.
I think they understand India is kind of trying to perch on the fence, trying to get the
Yeah. Yeah.
both
Yeah.
deal out of both
Yeah.
sides. But still, it's better to have
To have her
to keep them close, to keep the India close,
than
so
to the
you're aware of what's going on, right. Then have them in the opposite camp completely.
And yes, China will go to war with the West because, unlike Russia, where Putin is making decisions, China is following blueprint led by Mao. Very, very interesting statements. Uh, do you see this happening, Carl?
Depending what you mean by
Depends.
war, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like right now, China is already upending the Western dominated world order. This is what those
that's
people
true.
upset those people in Washington, because they have seen the Western dominance of
Yes.
the world being eroded away,
Yeah.
and China is leading um, is leading that change. But China is not looking for a big catastrophic kinetic war against United States that could end civilization. No, if anything, China does this is a serious misunderstanding. China does not even want to destroy the U.S. China actually want U.S. to do well so it can continue to participate in the global trade system, because war is
Yeah.
bad for business. China is all about business,
That's true.
and China hates the one thing that China hates is instability. Right?
Yeah.
China does not like war, and if U.S. collapses, that's actually pretty terrible for
That's
the
true.
global peace and stability, because that would be a major disruption to the global trading system. China do not want that. China
Yeah.
actually do not want to see U.S. fail. This is
Yeah.
thing that people in Washington don't understand, because people in Washington keep on shooting themselves in the foot. Donald Trump is doing more damage to United States than China ever could. So this is why we have that meme where CIA just uncovered the secret Chinese plot to sit back and watch
Yeah.
United States decline.
I remember.
Almost all the problem U.S. empire faces today is self-inflicted.
Which is true.
China didn't have to do anything. This is why we have that meme: China do nothing and win, because China's goal is not to destroy United States.
Yeah.
China's goal is to work on itself, to provide prosperity for its
Mhm.
people, and in doing so, you also realize it can do better for Chinese people, but also other people, by building up global interconnectivity, by building global infrastructure. That's what China is good at.
Yeah.
And if given the chance, I'm sure China would love to invest in United States. Build EV factories here. Invest in the high speed rail there. But it's the United States that's resisting that
We
future.
won't want that.
That
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
that's where we are.
That is true. EFU, thank you so much for your super sticker as always, and your support rather. United Asia, SAE, thank you. Southeast Asia, thank you so much for your super sticker. Rafael, you have another one in which you made a correction. I was wrong. Yes, I could tell, Rafael, you meant Indonesia, not Malaysia. You meant Indonesia is going to replace India. So I see you got it. You got it, Rafael. So and I knew Rafael because he was. I said I'm sure he was thinking in this term. So because Indonesia will make more sense into that. So, well, Carl, I'm going to give you a last word, Carl, and the last word I want you please to highlight for my community and for viewers from around the world is how do you see now that Trump sort of bullying tactics, lies, and all that is exposed. And we also seeing how China took stand, and taking that stance is giving like more courage now to some other countries to say, you know what, we're gonna push back. And what would you say to us American consumers, given what's going on?
Well, Trump is a great uniter of Eurasia right now. I mean, because Trump is making China, South Korea, and Japan sitting at the same table agreeing to a trade deal. By the way, China just signed another deal with ASEAN for the ASEAN plus China free trade zone. This is a trade zone with 2 billion people because China has 1.4 billion people. Southeast Asia has 680 million people. Altogether, that's more than 2 billion people. This is huge. And China is already working with EU actually representative, including von der Leyen, actually will be in China next month. And they will be talking about removing mutual trade restrictions, so hopefully after July, you'll be able to buy BYDs at much cheaper price in Europe, because right now you still have to pay like a 38% tariff, because any cars export to Europe, they have to pay 10%, but it's the Europe slap another 28% on Chinese EVs on top of that. So BYD current BYD export to Europe, they're a little bit they're almost like triple the price what they cost in China because of those tariffs. But hopefully after the talks, those restrictions will be removed. But again, this is all because of Trump. It's Trump that bring everybody together. Trump, the great peacemaker. I call him my president for accelerationism.
Interesting. I got two more individuals here for the super sticker. I have to say thank you to our members in the community here. Kevin Baptist, much appreciate your kind support as always. You wrote, whether China wants it or not, war has been declared. So sort of from what the US in terms of what they are thinking.
Yeah, US will always push for that. US is
for sure
always going to push for war, but the capability. One thing I agree with Mearsheimer is he's talking about, okay, intention doesn't matter. It's about capability, right? You know what? The capability of United States to do mischief is getting eroded year after year after year. Because as U.S. continue to lose its manufacturing base, so like as the time goes on, U.S. will have less it will be less capable to cause mischief. So we can look forward to that.
That's true. One more super sticker once again from Rafael. By the way, Carla, Rafael is an avid supporter of the channel, so it's been so generous with the channel. So thank you so much, Rafael. You wrote, China will not let what happened to the two cities in Japan happens to them. I couldn't agree more.
That's why China have nuclear weapons. That's why China developed nuclear weapons back in the 60s.
And they will not hesitate to use them if their sovereignty is threatened. I have no doubt about that. So what China will be one of those. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed listening to Carl here. Carl, on behalf of the entire community, we'll say thank you again for really carving out time for us here. And I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You take care, my friend.